Well, it's been a while, but I'm back talking about Smallville. Season 3 is when the show starts to get really good with the characters, as they start to move on with their lives away from the small Kansas town they grew up in. I wanted to make this video sooner, but I had other things that were more of a priority for me, and so I sort of went off from the series for a bit. Recently, however, I got to meet Michael Rosenbaum at Comic-Con last year, and that really brought me back into the show. So I rewatched Season 3, and I got to writing. Season 3 is so many people's favourite season, and after watching it, I can definitely see why. So, let's discuss what makes this season so great in the fanbase. Unlike the first two seasons, which were very episodic in structure, Season 3 follows one big storyline, as Clark's Kryptonian heritage is the main focus of the season. Following the finale of Season 2, where Clark puts on a red kryptonite ring and runs away, Jonathan makes a deal with Clark's kryptonite father Jor-El to get him back, by granting him temporary powers. Following this, Jonathan's health starts to decline and his heart fails on him. Clark stops at nothing to make sure his dad gets better, while also dealing with his own life. Then, in the season finale, we find out the deal that Jonathan made with Jor-El. He'd help Jonathan get Clark back on the condition that Clark be returned to him.
I promised Jor-El that if he gave me the power to bring you back from Metropolis, that one day I would return you to him.
Jonathan, you didn't do that.
Martha, I had no idea it was going to be this soon.
No.
And take Clark back he did, as Jor-El put Jonathan's life at risk if Clark didn't go with him. Clark is also faced with some of the consequences of his past actions. In episode 9, he pays a visit to Belle Reve Prison and meets some of his past villains there who plot their escape. The way he's been treating Lana also comes back to haunt him as well. For 2 seasons, he's continued to break her heart and put her in danger. They do eventually make up as good friends do, but with Lana moving away to Paris, it's a mystery as to what will happen with their relationship. Speaking of Lana, she's probably the character who had the most trauma this season. Upon having her heart broken by Clark several times, the Talon coffee shop was sold by Lex Luthor so that she can go to college. Lana also starts seeing a boy named Adam, originally a guy named Chad Nash who dies of liver cancer, but was resurrected by Lionel Luthor to spy on Clark. He's kept alive by a serum and eventually dies after Lionel stops funding it. Lana's childhood friend Emily, who was introduced last season, makes her return this year, and tries to stop Lana from moving away by kidnapping her. I should probably talk more about the villains because they start to become more recurring as the seasons go on. I'll quickly go over a few. We have Alice Baker, a teleporting girl obsessed with Clark, Frank Loader, a former FBI agent hired by Lionel to uncover Clark's secret, Jeremiah Holtzclaw, a kid who gains Clark's abilities with a Krypton dagger, and Dr. Gardner, a doctor who uses dangerous equipment on Clark and Lex to uncover lost memories. Even old Chloe is depicted as a bad guy this year. Chloe gains the ability to make people tell the truth. However, her power is fatal, and nearly dies until Clark injects her with the antidote. Chloe as a whole was a lot less likeable this season. On top of abusing the power she got, she also made a deal with Lionel to study Clark. Jesus, what is with this guy? Pete got some love this year. Ever since he found out about Clark's secret last season, he has always felt like an underdog compared to him. That's why, in episode 13, he started a career in street racing to find his own identity. But the fuel he used was made with kryptonite by a guy named Jason, who wanted $20,000 in payment. Pete challenges him to a race to pay his debt. However, Jason also had Clark in the boot of his car, who was incapacitated thanks to the kryptonite fuel. When the kryptonite ran out, Clark was able to punch a hole in the fuel tank, spilling petrol onto the road, which ignited Jason's car, costing him his life. Afterward, Pete promised to never disrespect Clark's powers again. Fast forward to the season's penultimate episode, where Pete makes a decision to move away with his mum. We find out that living with Clark's secret was too much for Pete to handle, constantly worrying he might slip up and say something. He still sees Clark as his best friend, but he could never live with himself if he was the one to reveal who Clark really was.
I know that I told you keeping your secret wasn't hard, but I lied. I walk around every day afraid that I'm gonna slip up.
Well, why didn't you tell me sooner?
Because you needed a friend, and so did I.
And thus, Pete makes his leave from the series. I think. I've not seen the others yet, so don't talk that for me. Okay, time to talk about Lex, who I waited until now to get around to because Lex Luthor has the craziest journey throughout this season. Following the plane crash at the end of last season, Lex spends weeks on a deserted island going mad. The crash was caused by his wife Helen, who attempts to take his house and fortune, only for Lex to find out upon his return. Helen convinces Lex to give her one last chance, only for her to once again betray him. We never see Helen again after the second episode. Whether she died or just made her escape is unknown, but one thing's for certain, she's just gone after this. The time Lex spent on the island had a bad effect on his mental state. He starts to hallucinate and bad memories start to resurface. We find out he had a brother called Julian who had died as a baby. Throughout the season, we are told that Lex was the one that killed him by accident. However, we would later find out that Lex's mum had done it to make sure Lionel couldn't harm him the way he had done for Lex. Knowing Lionel would never harm him to the point of death, Lex took the fall for years until finally revealing the truth to Lionel. Lex also works closely with the FBI to take down his father. When Chloe had her truth-telling powers, she discovered that Lionel hired the mob to kill his parents for the insurance money to build his company. At the end of the season, Lionel is arrested and thrown into prison. Though with him being diagnosed with terminal cancer, his time in the spotlight is running out. But even though Lionel is behind bars, he still has a way to get revenge. He asks to see Clark and tells him about a room in Lex's mansion. When Clark investigates, he finds out that Lex has been studying him since the day they met. From that moment on, Clark and Lex's friendship is over. This is also the season where we start to get introduced to more comic book characters. Characters like crime boss Morgan Edge, news reporter Perry White, and Clark's Kryptonian cousin Kara Zor-El. Well, kind of. She states her name is Kara, she has similar powers to Clark and even knows his Kryptonian heritage, but it's later revealed that she was an Earth girl that Jor-El planted a fake memory into. I haven't watched the later seasons of Smallville yet, as I want to review them in order, but I do know Kara appears in those seasons, and I'm quite curious to see how she's introduced. Perry White was a lot of fun. He's introduced as a drunken, washed-up news reporter, which isn't what the character is usually depicted as, but I want to see what they're going with this. I have a feeling he will return in a later season. Morgan Edge appeared a few times, and by two different actors, first played by Rutger Hauer, and later Patrick Bergin. By the end of the season, all the characters are in a different place from when they started. Pete and Lana have both moved away, Chloe gets caught in an explosion, Lionel shaves his head, Lex gets poisoned, and Clark was taken back by Jor-El, supposedly to be reborn. Now, this is the part of the video where I give you guys my favourite episodes of the season, but I've decided not to do that anymore, as you can't really rank these videos without watching the full season. So, go watch the full season, or hell, the show in general, it's a great watch. After watching this whole season in full, I completely understand why so many people claim Season 3 to be their favourite season of Smallville, and for that, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. And with that, I can now start my watch on Season 4, and I can't wait to talk about that.